in the name of personal injury law.
If you've ever been to Lansing, you're probably familiar with the 496 US 127 Interchange, which is one of the most dangerous roadways in the Lansing area. I'm here today with Steve Sinas, a personal injury attorney at the Sinas law firm, to talk about these dangerous roadways. Welcome back, Steve.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a little bit more detailed about what areas we're referring to.
Yeah, so if you're on the highway and you're headed north on US 127, or if you're on 96 and you want to go into downtown Lansing, these two highways come together and they become one highway for about a 2-lane stretch. It's a 3-mile stretch that they are becoming one highway. And in that area, there are a lot of exits, and the motorists need to make their lane changes so that they stay on the highway they want to keep going on. And so there is a lot of traffic that comes into the Lansing area through this roadway. And because of the movement of traffic, it creates a lot of hazards that lead to a lot of crashes.
Well, tell me, how dangerous is it? How many accidents are we talking about?
We did some research, and the stats show that nearly 1,000 crashes have occurred on this roadway over the last 5 years.
It's a lot, yeah.
3-mile stretch, 1,000 crashes.
So why is this area so dangerous?
Well, it gets back to, I think, the issue of the traffic that travels this roadway, which tends to be heavy in the mornings, at the end of the workday. Big events that bring a lot of people to the Lansing area. That's when this area of the roadway really becomes congested. And getting back to what I was saying before, there are these exits that people need to quickly merge off to use. And then with regard to the highway shifts, they have to make their lane changes. And sometimes it's confusing as to when they should make their lane change based on how the roadways are marked.
It's confusing even if you've lived here for a long time.
Right.
I believe.
Yes. Every day I travel this roadway, and
Right.
I always brace myself for who's going to make the next mistake.
Right. And not to mention, anytime MSU has a home game, there's even more traffic in that area.
Yes. And people who live in the Lansing area know that there are certain times of the day you just try to avoid the roadway altogether.
Right.
If you're coming back on 96 and it's end of the workday, you might just want to get off at Opus Road or a big MSU event. You may want to just try to avoid the roadway altogether because you can get not only in a crash, but also in a long traffic jam sometimes.
So you've broken down this 3-mile stretch into 4 specific areas. So let's talk about each of those 4 areas.
Right. So the most dangerous area is the area near the Trowbridge Road exit. When you're traveling up the 496 127 interchange, there's an exit for Trowbridge Road. It comes up abruptly. And if you're traveling at highway speed,
when you're on 496,
yes, well,
right?
When you're on the interchange,
okay,
it's up there midway through. And if you want to get off on Trowbridge Road to go to MSU's campus, you have to make a sudden lane shift to get off on the exit, and then you have to slow down abruptly because it's a hard turn. And in that area, there's been about 54 crashes over the last 5 years.
You haven't mentioned one of the dangers in that area: deer.
Right. Yes.
Because there's a lot of wooded area, and that's where the deer come across.
Right, and if you're driving at night, maybe it's not so congested, but you have to look out for that too, because that there is a wooded area along this roadway.
Okay. Is there anything more you want to tell us about that Trowbridge Road area?
No, just that if you're going to use that exit, slow down well in advance and know that if you're driving by it, other people may be trying to get off there, and they might abruptly try to swerve off the exit, and that could create a hazard to you and your family.
Okay. Let's talk about the area between Jolly and Dunkel.
Yeah, so Jolly and Dunkel is just the stretch as you get into the thick of the roadway, and as motorists are going on that area or traveling through that area, they are trying to figure out where they're going next on the highway, and so there's a lot of lane changes. There is the Jolly Road exit there. That's also an abrupt exit. So basically, the whole time you're on the stretch of highway, motorists are trying to figure out where they're going next, and everybody's moving and making lane changes, and that's where I think a lot of the crashes end up coming from.
What about the area of US 127 near Frandor?
Yeah, so that's another area where the exits make it dangerous, and there's also a way in which 127, if you're on 496, to keep on going north, if you're going 496 west, you have to, east, you have to then get off the highway and stay on 127, and you wrap back into the highway. And then when you're trying to get back into the highway, there are other motorists trying to get off at Saginaw Street exit. And so there's always some tension between how motorists are entering that part of the highway and the motorists that are trying to get
Well,
off
and if you're
Saginaw
coming
Street.
off of 127 and you want to turn right on Saginaw, you have to go across 4 lanes, and there's tons of traffic coming
Yes.
that you have to go across just to
Right.
get to where you're going.
I live around that area, and I use that exit almost every day, and you have to really know what you're doing there. And there's all kinds of hazards about getting off of that exit. I mean, you have to get off safely, and then when you get off, you have to make sure you're not going to get whacked on the service drive trying to get over to your lane.
We actually have a workaround by not taking that exit at all, and we
Yes.
take the Michigan exit or Kalamazoo exit and turn down Michigan instead,
Right.
because then you avoid all of that mess
Right.
to get into East Lansing.
My kids aren't old enough to drive yet, but one
Thankfully.
thing I'm thinking about is totally prohibiting them using that exit.
Certain roads you are not allowed to go on.
Right.
Okay, so I think there's one more area to talk about, and I think it's somewhere over by Trowbridge. Can you explain that 4th area to us?
Yeah, so if you are headed east out of downtown Lansing, that's where the highway merges again back together to get you out of town. And the traffic that's coming south on 127 is coming up, and there's also a treacherous merge going on there. The 496 traffic is being told that you got to get over to the left because it's going to go down to 2 lanes. So is the 127 traffic. So you have a merger of a highway getting funneled down into 2 lanes of a highway. And that's where you really need to just be patient as a motorist. Go through that area and all these areas, and just let the other people who are getting huffy and want to drive fast, let them do that. And you just sit back and get into your lane, make the safe lane change, take it slow. And in particular, that area is where you see people really getting confused and making sudden lane changes.
Well, that was really good advice, Steve. I think we have some more things to talk about how to protect ourselves and our family when we're driving in this dangerous area.
Right. I mean, what we're really trying to do is bring awareness to people as they go through the Lansing area that if you're going to go through this area, there are many hazards, many things are outside of your control, and the only thing you really can control is how you drive. And you're not going to get anywhere any faster by going through your 10 miles an hour faster. There's no need to cut anybody off. Try to be as patient as you can be as a driver, and that's going to help protect everybody, in particular you and your family, because it's the people who aren't really watching out for the people who aren't paying attention, who are making the sudden lane change, that don't react in time to save themselves from a crash. So,
well, you said, what you control is how you drive, but you're also control of how aware you are of what's going on around you.
right.
Any thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, the other thing too, I mean, you have a lot of various people traveling these roadways, many of which tend to be on their smartphones, right? Unfortunately, you see that a lot. Professionals, whoever getting out of work, they're looking at their phone, doing things like that. And so you just have to know that people are being funneled into a roadway where there are already natural hazards. Then people have their own hazards inside their own vehicle, which is distractions.
Right.
And so you need to drive defensively to protect yourself.
And cell phone is one big thing, but you have kids as well. Anytime you have children in the car, they're a huge distraction as well. Now, I kind of drive like a grandma, but with my kids in the car. But a lot of kids can be very distracting, especially when they're fighting in the back seat.
Right, and you might want to tell your family, hey, we're going through the dangerous area of this highway. We all need to quiet down. Actually, I've told my kids about the dangerous aspects of this roadway, so they know it is a dangerous roadway. So yeah, quiet the family down, make sure there aren't distractions inside the car, and just stay aware as much as you possibly can.
And I really liked your suggestion about taking alternate routes.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
You might need to know the Lansing area, but you can certainly take alternate routes and avoid this area of the roadway altogether. One might think that those routes will take you longer, but if you get in a traffic jam in this area of the roadway, it's going to take you longer to get through it. So you might want to try to study the Lansing area if you're not familiar with it, to see how you can avoid this area, in particular at rush hour and big events, and just keep you and your family safe.
Great. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
In the Name of Personal Injury Law is brought to you by the Sinas Law Firm.